This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, welcome back everyone. So we looked into the major differences between a use case diagram and a use case in the previous segment. As I had mentioned earlier, it is good for us to know how to create these two type of requirements documentation also, because this is quite an important question in the interviews. Later when you get into a project, will you use it or not? That again is a little questionable, because at the end it depends on the type of project it is, how much time do you have to document the requirements, what is the expectation from the stakeholders, and a lot more other points. Okay, but from interviews perspective, it is definitely a good thing to be aware of. So we'll look into a use case diagram first. Let me take an example. In fact, some of you who might have studied computer science engineering or information technology related courses, you may already be able to recollect what you learned in your back in your colleges and all. So this is a typical use case diagram. So as I had mentioned earlier, what happens is there'll be a big rectangle. It's more like a square here, but usually it'll be a rectangle. So this is called as a system. Okay, and then these stick figures that you see here, those are referred to as actors. Okay, actors as in what you see in movies and actors. Okay, so here you have three actors. You have a customer, you have a chef, and you have an administrator. Administrator is nothing but a person who is handling the settings, you can call it as settings in your food delivery app. Okay, so you have three major people. Apart from this, there could be few more actors if required. Maybe you can have restaurant owner as one more actor. You can have the food delivery agent as one more actor. Based on what you're adding or what requirements you're focused on, the actors may be different. Okay. In fact, to make it more clear, there is a point of having a primary actor and a secondary actor. Slightly diverging from this example, but to let you understand, think about uh, a teenager opening a bank account whose guardian is his parent. Okay, so now in this case, there will be a joint bank account opened in the name of these two customers, the parent and the child. The parent will be perhaps the primary actor and the child will be the secondary actor, or vice versa. Maybe the child is the primary actor and the parent is the secondary actor for this account. And primary actor may not be able to, if the child is the primary actor, then primary actor is not allowed to withdraw beyond a certain limit do a transaction beyond a certain limit, whereas the parent can be doing it. So like that, you're splitting the requirements based on what is possible for a primary actor and what is possible for a secondary actor. Okay, so that is not related to our food delivery app, as I say, because here we don't have that sort of specification. Here we have different actors altogether. Okay, so if I have to talk about this particular thing, so I said that this middle box which is there, that is referred to as a system. These are the three actors in this example, and what you see here in these ovals, like create account is one, add new item to food menu is one, order food is one, reserve table, confirm order. What are all these are the use cases. Okay, so your requirements always revolve around this specific use case. Okay, now who is going to make use of these use cases? It is going to be the actors. So why is this create account having a relation with the customer? Because it is the customer who is going to create the account. It is the customer who is going to order the food, and it is the customer who is going to reserve the table. Similarly, the chef is the one who is going to confirm the order. Means you have placed an order to a restaurant, right? That restaurant chef has to say that yes, I can deliver this particular food item in the next 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So let me confirm the order. So that confirmation of the order comes from the chef, and it is the chef who will be sending the notification on ready when the order becomes ready, and it is the chef who will be viewing the customer's order details, like what exactly customer wants to be cooked. Okay. Similarly, administrator will be able to do all these things. He'll be able to delete items from food menu, edit prices, view transactions, maybe add some discount coupons, maybe add some additional restaurant details. All those things will be done by the administrator. Okay. So these what you see here are going to be the use cases, these are going to be the actors, and this is going to be the system. Okay, now what are the components? We have to talk about this order train, by the way. I'll tell that also. So usually the major components of your use case diagram would be the actors, okay, what you see here. Then the systems, this one is the system, okay. This is one thing, major component. Use cases, as I mentioned, these things. And then you have something called as relationships, okay. What is this relationships? So here, uh, when you have a use case, okay, it can be further depending on additional steps, okay. When those additional steps become mandatory for your use case, then there is something called as an includes relationship. When these additional steps are sort of optional for your major use case, then it gets into the extends relationship. Okay, now here you can see extends relationship of order food. What is happening here? So your order food is the major use case, okay, and that is why it has a direct link with the customer. But when you're ordering food, there is an option of you adding a drink also to this food item order. Okay, so this is an option, and that is the reason it is having a extend relationship. And how do you represent that? You draw a dotted arrow from that sub use case to the major use case, arrow directed towards the major use case, and you write this text called extends between closed arrows. Okay, so this is how you write a extends use case relationship. Similarly, what could be an include? Include could be, um, here I don't, let me see if we can. Okay, so for example, if the customer wants to reserve the table, let's say reserving table requires the customer to also select the table number. Okay, let's assume this is a mandatory requirement. If you're reserving a table, so what happens? Customer opens the app, then wants to reserve the table to go and directly have the lunch or dinner at that restaurant uh, venue. Then when the customer clicks on that reserve table, the next step is asking the customer to select the table, because maybe some tables are priced higher, some tables are priced lower, okay, things like that. So now this reserve table will have a sub use case called as confirm table number, and that becomes a includes relationship. Why is it so? Because it is a mandatory step. If the customer doesn't mention which table to confirm, then it could be a premium table, it could be a gold table, it could be a silver table, it could be a platinum table. You don't know. And the pricing could be different for different tables. So unless and until customer confirms the table type, you cannot fulfill this reserve table use case. So it becomes a mandatory relationship. That would come under includes, that would not come under extends, because as I said, extends is an optional. When I'm creating a food order, I can omit drinks, I can stick to only food item, and I say I want only this, I don't want any beverages. That is possible. That's why it is extend. But here it becomes a mandatory step, so it becomes a include relationship. Okay, that's one thing. Now if you have to talk about the steps to create, the first thing that you do is you identify the actors of the system. If I want a particular functionality to be delivered, who are going to be the ones who are going to interact with that feature? Is it going to be only customer, or is it going to be customer plus the food delivery agent? Is it going to be customer plus the chef plus administrator? So like that, you first identify the actors, okay, and then for each category of actors, identify the roles played by the users. As I said, primary, secondary, if that is possible, you mention that. And then identify what are the requirements to be fulfilled by the system. What is that feature or a functionality? As I said, your account creation could be one thing, your user registration could be something, order confirmation could be something, payment could be something. In fact, if you see, we don't have payment mentioned here. If you talk about payment, then there could be another actor called as a bank, which has to give the confirmation. So that would be a different use case type. But giving you an example, so you identify the requirement. Okay, so what you did majorly, you identified the actors and assigned the roles to them if required. Then you identified the requirements. You have created use cases for every goal or every requirement. similar to what you have here. Okay, you create the use case, you structure the use case. What does it mean by structure? Structure is nothing but you have 10 requirements. You need to know where you start and where you end, right? For example, I cannot talk about confirm order even before customer has ordered food, right? So confirming order comes only after the customer has selected a food item, and customer selecting a food item only happens after the customer has created an account and logged in, right? So there is a sequence. So you put a structure for those use cases, and then final step is when there are again too many requirements and all, you need to prioritize. Or else what happens is you create a use case diagram, review with the stakeholders, have a rough estimation by discussing with the tech architect, and validate the users saying that this is what we can deliver. So typically this is what your use case diagram is going to look like. Okay. If you want further, what you can do is think of any other scenario and create a use case diagram by yourself. And let me tell you one thing frankly, that if I give a specific functionality, something like a search or a login or a payment or anything which is pretty common scenarios, if I give like that to 10 people and say that create use case diagrams, there is a very rare possibility that two out of those 10 people will come up with the same use case diagram. Reason being, the way every person looks at the features and functionalities and puts that format to it and identifies the actors, there could be a difference. And only when you refine further, when you discuss with stakeholders, when you try to bring in more requirements, that is when some sort of similarity can be found in between use case diagrams created by two out of those 10 people. So there is no comparison here. It is only about what is your level of understanding of the requirement and the way you're putting it across in the use case diagram and the way you're taking it forward to the stakeholders. Okay, because this is not going to be the detailed requirement. As I said, this is just a visual representation which is to give an idea to the stakeholder saying that okay, roughly this is what I understood. Later this has to be drilled down, this has to be documented with all the details, which you can do in format of use case, or you can do it in some other format. So that follows up later, where you try to ensure that all information is definitely captured. In the next segment we will look into this particular point also, like how do you create a use case. Again, we'll try to take an example related to the food delivery app itself, and then you will be able to clearly understand, like when I spoke about the differences over here, this could have been a little vague. You would have thought, okay, I seem to understand something but it is not clear. But now with this slide you would be clear with how a use case diagram is created. With the next slide, which I talk about in the next video, you will be clear about how a use case is also written. Then I am confident that you will definitely be able to use your own examples and clearly differentiate between what is a use case and the use case diagram. Okay, so we'll stop this here. We'll meet again in the next video. Thanks everyone.